Hello, my fellow wargaming tankers. Today's video will be talking about some alternatives to the Thrungva. But of course, as with all videos discussing a wargaming product, we must begin with the wargaming prayer. Dear Tank Jeebus, grant me the strength to accept the things I cannot change, for wargaming maketh the rules, and wargaming breaketh the rules. And as you can tell, in case you maybe don't know, but if you do know, this is the Thrungva, part of the whole Valhalla event that is being introduced, or now introduced, and is being expanded upon as the weeks go by. This is the Arrow 1 Premium Heavy Tank. It's basically like a Swedish Emil, Kranbogen, Barracuda from World War II type deal. And I bought it almost immediately, full price, didn't hesitate because I'm more interested / on the fence with the Millionaire, but that's an Arrow 3 light tank that kind of has a 120 millimeter boom snout, and that makes it somewhat effective, but it's a light tank in Arrow 3. Meanwhile, the Thrungva is an Arrow 1 heavy tank with a 3-round clip and a really good turret. So yeah, there's a reason I rushed out about this, because this is probably also going to be the only premium tank for Arrow 1 released this year. So I definitely lean on you getting it. If you play Cold War mode, you will probably play it more and enjoy it more. But let's say you can't afford any of the discounted price, full price or discounted, on this thing. What can you do? Well, you do have some options. Now, I think some, because everyone likes the whole Eastern Lines tank line, gun depression, etc., and will immediately think like the Char 40, but while it does share a similar turret style to the Thrungva, you know, a turret that looks like a gentleman had a shaving accident in the shower, I think there are more closer alternatives to the Thrungva, especially as the playstyle doesn't necessarily have to change too much. And wouldn't you know it, you can't afford this, but if you got a check, you can totally get the same experience. What am I talking about? Well, let's dive in. So here we are with the first poor man's option to the Thrungva, the Skoda T50. Now, with when I mean poor man's like option, there are similar playstyles where the Thrungva has a really tall turret and a really shallow hull. The Skoda and the TVP 5051 have really tall hulls and shallow turrets. So you have a slight, it's the same difference essentially. Of course, the Thrungva's turret is amazingly well angled, can bounce a lot of shots. It just looks like a horrible shaving accident. Now, there is, and what you really do want to focus on is obviously the boom snouts. Now, the Skoda and the TVP have 100 millimeter boom snouts. The Thrungva has a 120 millimeter. So obviously there's going to be a difference. Penetration values has the Thrungva at 252 millisecond penetration, while the Czech mediums are at 248, which is really nice. Okay, not a huge penetration difference, so you kind of have to aim for the same areas of paint. Alpha-wise, Thrungva's got him beat at 430 alpha. The Czechs can only do 320. So, shucks. Go figure. You have a medium caliber boom snout versus a heavy tank caliber boom snout. There will be the differences in the alpha. But because of the penetration values, you'll be wanting to penetrate, you'll be wanting to aim for the same places, and you will find yourselves doing a lot of tracking shots. You become really excellent support tanks in both regards, because you're going to be penetrating the same places. The IS-4M will be giving you problems. That's why you got to go for the tracking shots. Use your mobility, where all these tanks do 60 kilometers per hour. Although the Czechs have better reverse speed, but they're just lighter. Now, that is really the main focus. Very similar boom snout setups. You want to focus in on getting the reloads down as fast as possible. The Skoda T50 is the better reload for, just so you know, this commander only has 6 cents. Granted, you are talking trying to get as somewhere in the ballpark of 25 to 30 seconds reload. It's a long reload. You gotta try to time your shots and your reloads because you can get caught out real quick. It's always fun trying to play the support tank to a FE 4005, and when you're both on those long reloads, it's like, well, we're kind of screwed. But if you can eliminate that one tank without bouncing any shots, wonderful. But back to the comparison. Now, the main difference I definitely noticed was that the Czech mediums, their bloom out on the reticle was not as severe as the Thrungva. Kind of figures. Bigger boom snout, gotta penalize it in some way, shape, or form. So there's your main difference. But you can still work with all this because you're gonna want that same playstyle of getting hull down. Thrungva, well, that gun depression's really good at like 10 degrees on a really tall turret, so you can really peek over ridge lines. You have a lower plate that's 100 millimeters. That's great, except for the fact it's 100 millimeters, and at certain angles it will become very flat. Now, the Czech mediums, both 8 degrees of gun depression on a high hull. You can still get hull down. Granted, turret-wise, the Czechs could be better. You know, they can bounce shots from angles. Not all of them. And they do have a few weak points. And the Thrungva will have them beat in those regards. Now, you can't hate that, though, because you can get that same feeling almost. You will have slightly better view range, give or take. Not that it matters much, because you're fat mediums. Let's be real, that large hull, you are not. You can be sneaky only in certain situations, but all three tanks will have that same support tank type mentality. Granted, the Thrungva will be better at finishing off tanks because of that high alpha, but you can kind of, especially when you're working with a teammate, it's like, boom, you get that first opening shot. You either do damage or you get that tracking shot. Teammate comes in with another hit. Boom, your second shot, you're going for penetration. Then you can space that out just so that your teammate comes in with that next shot, especially if they're a heavy. You can cripple a tank, and then you can finish off the enemy tank. Or, as some would call it, kill stealing, or I would say confirming the kill, but it's the same kind of play style because none of these are the best at brawling. Very poor armor. And again, once you dump your clips, you got a really long reload, and suddenly tanks that have 7.5, 8, 9 to 12 second reloads, those reloads don't feel as long from this perspective. So that's kind of why you really should consider if, like, hey, I don't want to financially support wargaming, or you just can't, or you couldn't be bothered, but if you want to get that kind of... Alright, what are we talking about here when we get to the Thrungva? The Czech mediums are a really good substitute. Again, not to be derogatory, discriminating as poor man's, Thrungva. Because right now, yeah, I guess the more direct, heavy tank version would be the M103 or the T-34, but it's not quite the same style of play because you've got obviously good turret armor, but you've got some hull armor, so where you can just lumber in or lumber along and just bully your way in, where with the Thrungva, once you bullied your way in and suddenly found yourself without that, waiting on that reload, it's over. And all three tanks, man, when there's a little FV-107 or something puttering around, that can be a problem. Speaking of another tank that has a clipping, I guess you could compare it to the Thrungva. Yeah, those HE rounds can be like, they can be annoying and painful, especially on that reload. You're like, I got nothing, and you can't chase the little buggers down. So, comment down below. Are these good substitutes for the Thrungva? Do you not even care about the Valhalla mode? Did you like what you saw? Like and subscribe if you did. Tell me if you have these things. What do you think? If you don't have them, are you now interested in getting them? Because I think they're really fun tanks to play. They can be very effective, and it's not often you get Eastern Alliance tanks that have actual gun depression, so it's kind of refreshing. And again, if you like that support tank style, if you have the same fetish I do in busting tracks, then definitely give these a go. Yes, the Thrungva has that heavy tank proper alpha, but penetration-wise, you can kind of get the same feeling. So, you know, you don't have to spend the big bucks to get the same experience. You just have to be willing to sacrifice your time. And if you're having fun, though, you're not sacrificing your time. With that said, again, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Hope you keep the tracks on the ground and the RNG in your favor. Catch you in the next one. Bye. Oh my god, what is he doing? He's homicidal, genocide, suicidal. It's Sabu! Rest in peace, Sabu. I always think of Sabu when I do crazy stuff in video games. RIP legend.